Flying to Alaska in a small plane is one of the greatest adventures as a pilot. But an adventure like this also poses a lot of risk, and some dangers are often invisible to the pilot.
For about 30 seconds, I was more scared in an airplane than I'd ever been in my entire career.
So join me as I tell you the true story of danger over the Yukon. Today's story starts in the town of Vermilion in Canada. Mike and I are headed to the airport to continue our 3,700-mile journey up to Alaska. The plan for today is to get an early start and get fueled up. We're hoping this gives us enough time to fly 900 miles over to Whitehorse in the Yukon. So these guys actually have a little outbuilding where you go to pay for fuel. Check this out. That's kind of interesting. You put your card in there and just a little outbuilding, I guess, so you can stay warm while you're filling your plane. And they even have a little trap for little vermin that try to sneak in and get warm. And while Mike's paying for things, let's do something really important here. All right, let's see if we can clean off some of these bugs and the frost. A lot of people don't know this, but frost is actually something that can be really dangerous for pilots. We're gonna have to clean the frost off the wings as well. Definitely don't want to take off with frost on the wings. This is probably the most use my Top Golf card has gotten in a really long time. So I cleaned some of the frost off the wings, but I couldn't get it all because there was quite a bit. So we're gonna let the sun come up and heat this thing up a little bit and get rid of all of it because we're at a little bit higher altitude. What's the elevation here, about 2,000 feet?
Yes.
So we're gonna play it safe and wait it out just a few minutes, let the sun come up and melt the rest of that off. And while we're doing that, Mike's gonna fill out the visitor log. So if you swing by Vermilion, then you can try to find our names in here. After waiting about 2 hours, we decided to speed up the process just a little bit. We decided to use just a little bit of hot water to melt that last little bit of frost on the wings. And from my experience, this only works if the temperature's right at or above freezing. That water tends to refreeze if you're below freezing, and that just makes the problem worse. All right, now that we've done that, I don't see any sign of refreezing, so I think we're good to go. Let's get out of here. All right, so we're headed to Fort St. John for our next leg. Charlie Yankee X-Ray Juliet. Yeah, so 385 miles, course of 285. That tracks with ForeFlight.
Well, I'll do the step fire.
Okay.
Well, let's see. We don't really have any.
No, it's a slight tailwind, like 5 knots. I'm good with taking if you want to back taxi and take the entire runway.
Taxi's debating, and
Yeah, we can depart to the northwest. We should have a slight tailwind, so this should actually be a lot faster this time. Vermilion traffic, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, back taxiing 10 for a 28 departure to the north, Vermilion.
I'll just take the whole runway. How's that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Let's take the whole runway. Vermilion traffic, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, taking 28 for a northwest departure, Vermilion.
Let's get going.
Oil pressure's in the green.
Yep. Airspeed's starting to come alive.
He's just going to get off the ground slower with this tailwind. Okay, we're airborne and we're headed to Fort St. John. I'm being told that we're probably going to see some pretty cool scenery between here and Fort St. John, but the prettiest scenery is going to be coming later in today when we go from Fort Nelson to Whitehorse. I think we're going to see some really cool looking mountains when we get out there.
Little wind up here.
Yeah, is it a tailwind like we're expecting?
I think so.
We're climbing
Yeah,
at 70 and we got
81, yeah.
81 knot ground speed, so we got 10 knots of tailwind at the moment, so that's good. Maybe we can make up for some lost time from yesterday. That was brutal, and the day before for that matter. We definitely got a very Canadian experience here in the big town of Vermilion, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I think I heard the word A more than my share. But honestly, I'd come back here, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, the people are super friendly. They had a pretty decent hotel. Was at the Pomeroy.
Yes.
I would recommend that. And then they didn't have a courtesy car, but the taxi only costs $10 to get there, $10 Canadian, so it's like $7.50 So super cheap to get there and back from the hotel, so I would highly recommend that. And the fuel was way cheaper than anywhere around here, so highly recommend this airport if you're in this area and you're making this trek up to the Great White North. Yeah, so some of these ponds are already frozen too. That frost cost us some time, but I think we're still going to get in at a somewhat reasonable time today.
But the tailwind, yeah.
Yeah, if the winds cooperate like it's looking like right now, we should get there no later than 7 p.m. tonight at Whitehorse.
But little do we know, the wind will be the least of our concerns on that last leg.
We're going to see some decent ground speeds here, I think. Hopefully we're seeing 100 knots ground speed. That would be ideal.
Well, yeah, especially we're showing 79 climbing.
Yeah. We may see 110. That'd be really nice. Vermilion traffic, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray. Clear of your airspace to the northwest, 4,500 Vermilion. All right, now that we're leveled off at 4,500, where we're going to cruise for this flight, looks like we're getting about 95 knots indicated and almost 110 knots ground speed. So it's showing on ForeFlight here that we should get there in about 3 hours and 22 minutes. And so we're definitely going to have enough fuel to get to Fort St. John. Grand Prairie, if worst case scenario, if the winds change directions, it's quite a bit closer, so we could always go there if we need to, but Fort St. John is looking like the ticket for now, so 3 hours and 20 minutes of flight time. This should be fun. So when we were at Vermilion, one of the Canadian guys there, we're talking about Peace River, and he was saying it was like a huge ravine that they took advantage of during World War II. Kind of interesting story about that. But anyways, that's some pretty cool scenery right there. All right, I'll go ahead and listen to the weather real quick.
15, ceiling 1,500 broken, 4,500 overcast, temperature 2, dew point -2, altimeter 3008, runway 30, inform Fort St. John Radio, you have information India.
India still.
Fort St. John information India, weather from 1900 Zulu, wind 340 at 7, visibility 15, ceiling 1,500 broken, 4,500 overcast, temperature 2, dew point -2, altimeter 3008, runway 30, inform Fort St. John Radio, you have information India.
So that's telling us 330 is what they're using. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bigger over here on this side.
This is going to be pretty cool scenery right here.
Man.
I hope you guys aren't switching off the channel right now. This is pretty neat. Yeah, so Fort St. John has really interesting radio communications, and when I started looking at the charts and ForeFlight, I honestly had no idea how to make these radio calls because it seems like it's passively controlled by a flight service station. And so I've been kind of listening to the radio calls for the past, 30 minutes or so?
Oh, at least.
And I think I kind of know how to do it. It's a little bit like they do it in Alaska, but you get the ATIS, and then you call in with your position, like a CTAF call, but you say Fort St. John radio, and then they come back to you and just say, okay, we heard you. And one guy actually got was told to ident, so we'll see what they give us. I honestly don't know, so we could probably go ahead and call them. We're about 18 miles out right now.
To the east, roughly.
Yeah, southeast.
Yeah.
Fort St. John Radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray.
November 3148 X-ray, Fort St. John Radio.
Fort St. John Radio, 3148 X-ray. We're about 18 miles to the southeast, 3,500 with India, inbound for 30.
48 X-ray, roger, runway 30, wind 340 at 8, altimeter 3008, squawk 2564, say ETA.
3008, 2564, say again last for 3148 X-ray, say ET.
48 X-ray, say ETA.
Oh, ETA. About 10 minutes.
48 X-ray, roger.
Okay. That wasn't too bad. I wasn't expecting to get a squawk, but that's what they gave us. So, yeah, I guess it's passively controlled. I don't think we're going to get a clearance to land. I never heard a clearance to land from the other people, so we'll see what happens here. But it's Class Echo, and it's supposedly non-towered, so I don't know what to do here in Canada. Not well versed in these procedures, but based on you know, what we've been hearing, this seems like the right thing to do. And yes, I should have done a little bit more research on it, but you know, I looked online and their information's kind of scattered all over, and it's not easy to find information for these guys. And it's not really standard IKO procedures either, based on the IKO stuff I've done in the past. So I don't know. This is pretty neat. This river, this Peace River, I guess. That's what that guy said.
Yeah, it is neat.
Yeah, he was saying that during World War II, they had a bunch of bridges that were strategically placed, and if for some reason the western side of Canada were to be, you know, attacked or something, they could cut those bridges off, and then, you know, the rest of Canada would be safe, basically.
Did they say they had them set for explosives?
I don't think...
Oh, I thought he did.
I think he said they had them set to where you could put explosives on them.
Oh.
I think that's what he was saying. I don't know if there's any truth in that, but that's what we were told by a resident Canadian. And yes, he did say A at the end of every sentence.
Hey.
Isn't that right there, bud?
Fort St. John Radio, A-Star Helicopter, Golf Tango, Kilo Mike.
Oh, somebody else is coming in.
Golf Tango Kilo Mike, Fort St. John Radio.
Good afternoon, Tango Kilo Mike, Information India, 16 miles to the west, Fort St. John, 3,500, inbound for heli source, estimating the field just under 9 minutes.
Tango Kilo Mike, wind 340 at 9, altimeter 3008, traffic 12 miles to the southeast, inbound for runway 30, now 172, estimating same time as you, squawk ident.
Check marks and traffic, squawk ident, Tango Kilo Mike.
He's a helicopter, ain't he?
I'll give you another direct here. Is it?
Oh, I'm lining up with it here, so you can.
Mike, Roger, ident, break, November 3148, X-ray, Fort St. John Radio.
Go for 3148 X-ray.
48 X-ray, traffic 15 miles to the west, inbound for the west ramp, A-Star helicopter, estimating same time as you.
Searching 3148 X-ray. Okay, so we'll just keep an eye out for him.
Yep, it's going to be about 4 hours.
Yeah, so winds are 340, so you got a right to left crosswind.
Oh. Now I'm going to seat belts, fuel selections on both.
Roger.
I can park away and go full rich.
Fort St. John Radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, 3 mile final, 30 with negative contact with the helicopter behind us.
48 X-ray, Roger. A-Star helicopter just 5 miles to the west-southwest.
Roger, thank you. And ma'am, 48 X-ray, quick question, we don't need a clearance to land here. I'm new with this type of airspace.
48 X-ray, affirmative, proceeding and land at your discretion.
Thank you, land at our discretion, 48 X-ray. It doesn't hurt to ask.
No, but she would have said something, I think.
She would have, but I've seen people land without clearance before. It's a kick to the old pride, but I just had to do it.
So they even have any lights?
I don't see any. I don't see Pappies or Vassies.
I just feel like we're just floating here.
I know, it feels like
Tango Kilo Mike has
our ground speed's very slow.
No conflict.
Tango Kilo Mike, Roger.
At least I got a windsock right here at the end of the...
Yeah, we've got roughly a 10 knot headwind right now, so our ground speed's like 60 knots. It feels weird because this thing's so big. This runway's huge.
Yeah, like when I landed at Tulsa that one time.
St. John Radio, Skyhawk 314 X-ray, clear 30, taxiing to the west ramp. And as you would expect from American pilots, we did struggle a little bit trying to find that FBO, but we did find it eventually. Let's see if we can go top off the plane and get some Canadian coffee. As we entered the Canadian FBO, we found it completely devoid of the American staple.
You know, this is a big FBO, but not a drop of coffee in sight. That's kind of disappointing.
Even though they didn't have any coffee, it was nice to walk around and stretch your legs out a little bit while the FBO tops us off on fuel. And this gave us another chance to look at the weather one more time before we headed on our way.
CCYE?
CYYE.
Oh, C, okay, that was close.
Fort St. John Information, Juliet, weather at 2000 Zulu, wind 340 at 10.
That's the same.
Fort St. John Radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray. Parked at the east ramp. I'd like to taxi 30 with Juliet.
November 3148 X-ray, Fort St. John Radio. Roger, runway 30, wind 340 at 10, altimeter 3008, squawk 2564. And Advise direction of flight and planned altitude.
3008-2564, 3,000 feet, and we're headed north.
48 X-ray, roger.
What's your plan here?
Well, we're going to do what that other guy did, and I'm just going to advise that we're back taxiing 12
Oh, okay,
for
okay.
a 30 takeoff. What does it look like over there?
We look good. Nothing's coming in.
And Fort St. John radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, holding short 12 at Alpha, ready to back taxi for a 30 departure.
48 X-ray, roger. No reported traffic.
314 X-ray.
Alrighty.
I'm not sure if these are correct radio calls or not. It's just strange. Oh, we're probably going to do about 4,000 foot of runway here. This total runway length is 6,000 feet. Yeah, see how much wider these stripes are than normal?
Uh-huh.
I mean, shoot, you could almost land on a stripe, they're so big. This creates quite the optical illusion when you're landing. Fort St. John radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, taking 30 for northwest departure.
48 X-ray, roger.
Alright, power set, power checks. Oil pressure's looking good.
Airspeed's live.
Yeah, airspeed's coming alive, looking good. Got a slight right to left crosswind. There's 55 knots. Looking good. Ever did turn my landing lights on?
No, I missed that too.
Not required. Alright, lights off, flaps up, takeoff checklist is complete. Yeah, so when we looked at the TAF lines this morning, there was a line for IFR for Fort Nelson, but we checked the weather right before we left, and it's showing marginal VFR and improving, so we should be good. There's not really much terrain between here and Fort Nelson. There's some terrain off to the west, but we're going to be staying well clear of that, so I'm not too worried about it, but if the weather gets too bad, we'll just turn around and come back here. There you go.
I'd be sorry I did this, but it's
Well, what is it? Well, we don't know how. Roughly 2 hours, probably.
220.
Based on our current
Once
ground
we
speed.
get up, it'll change.
Yeah.
Oh, I can make it happen.
I'm going to level off at 3,500. This will keep us out of these clouds, and we'll see what ground speed we get here. Yeah, that's some pretty cool terrain right there underneath us. That's pretty neat. Yeah, so that last leg took us about 4 hours.
Yeah, right
which
at it.
put us, let's see, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we're at 22 hours into this trip, and we're about, what do you say, 3/4 of the way into it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so 22 hours. Hey, 22, I got 22 hours under my belt. Not too bad for a 25-hour pilot, what do you say?
No, it's not.
Is this the outcam we're looking at right here, underneath us? I think it is.
Oh, is it? I don't know.
About a quarter of the way into this leg, we actually ran into a little bit of freezing rain, which was a little bit concerning, but thankfully it only lasted for about a minute, so we decided to keep going.
There's some pretty scenery right there.
Yeah.
Like a pretty ravine right there.
For Nelson Information Lima, weather 21 Zulu, winds 300 at 9, visibility 30, back conditions 3,700 few, 10,000 scattered, temperature 1, dew point -10, thunder 3018. Arrival runway 04, departure runway 22, inform Fort Nelson radio, you have information Lima.
Okay. Information Lima, they want us to arrive for depart 22. So that's weird. I wonder why they're doing that.
Okay, so which way you land?
So we're going to land on runway 4, so we'll probably set up for like a right base for 04, and then we're going to depart off of 22. I'm not sure why they're doing that, but we will give them a call and see what they say. And that was Lima.
Yes.
How far are we out? 15?
15 miles.
Fort Nelson Radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray. I'll see how they come back to us here. They may not come back to us. I don't know. If there's a fort, there should be
Skyhawk, November 3148 X-ray, Fort Nelson radio.
Fort Port Nelson Radio, Skyhawk 314 X-ray. We're 15 nautical miles to the southeast, 3,500 inbound for runway 4 with Lima.
Roger, runway 04, wind 230 at 5, altimeter 3016.
3016, 314 X-ray.
So your ETA?
ETA is 8 minutes and 45 seconds for 314 X-ray.
Correct X-ray, Roger, report 5 miles.
314 X-ray. They both wanted an ETA.
Yeah, I guess that's...
You know, that's probably because they don't have... Well, the other one had radar because they made a
Yeah,
squawk.
I guess they just want...
So, I don't know. That's strange.
Oh, he didn't give a squawk code, did he?
He didn't. But we must be the only one in the area or something.
Yeah, I'm not picking anybody up, so...
Okay, he said call 5 mile final.
5 mile final.
Alright, seatbelts on. Fuel selector valve on both. Mixture best power. Throttle set for now. We'll go ahead and turn the landing light on. We're way out here, but that's fine. I'm gonna try something here. I felt like maybe we might have been getting a little carb icing. I know we were at a high power setting, but we were also in a little bit of moisture back there. It's pretty here.
There it is.
I've only spent a week in this town. It's so different seeing this from the air. Oh, that's why they're doing that, because all their stuff is at the end of runway 4, so they want you to land 4 and take off 22.
We're guessing that's it there, huh?
Yep,
But it's got to be.
Yep, that's it. I kind of starting to see the runway now. I saw the hangars, I just didn't see the runway. Great town of Fort Nelson. Had a truck break down about 30 miles outside of town, and I got to spend a week there. And that was quite the journey, I will say. Alright, we'll start to head down here. And Port Nelson Radio, Skyhawk 314 X-ray, 5 mile final, 04.
48 X-ray, Roger.
Okay, we don't need a clearance to land, as we learned from the last airport. I feel like we're moving super slow, even though our airspeed, indicated airspeed is like 110 knots. In the wide arc. Lower some flaps. Let's go ahead and get all those down. So go ahead and go carb heat. Okay, flaps are all down. We're headed down to land. Actually, I might aim for those 1,000 footers that way, because we're going to roll it out to the end anyways. I don't know why it feels like we're moving so slow. Does it feel like that to you?
Oh, yeah, that's what it did the last time when I landed a while ago.
I know this runway's, no, it's not any bigger than what I'm used to, so I don't know why it feels like we're moving so slow. We have a slight tailwind, that's what's causing us to get pushed right now. Golly, we're just gonna land long. We got plenty of runway in front of us. Alright, well, we didn't die. Thankfully we don't need a ton of fuel, but we want to be topped off for this next leg. I'm going to cut across here. Port Nelson Radio, Skyhawk 314 X-ray, clear runway 4, taxiing to the fuel station.
48 X-ray, Roger.
See, I told him I was confused without sounding confused.
Where might that be?
Let's get some more fuel and once again check for coffee. 1 plus 4, so 14.2. I don't know where to go. I guess over on this other side. All right, so we got some fuel here at Fort Nelson and used the bathroom, and no snacks here, unfortunately. But now let's jump in the plane and go see what I think is going to be the best part of this whole trip, through the mountains. You ready, Mike?
I'm ready.
Let's get out of here. As Mike and I take off from Fort Nelson in British Columbia, the weather seems to be working in our favor. But as we cross into the Yukon and we begin to fly over the Northern Rockies, the weather will be the least of our concern. Our original plan was to fly from Fort Nelson over to Whitehorse in the Yukon. And this leg was supposed to take us 4 hours with no wind. But just in case, we could land at Watson Lake, which is right in between the two. Before we took off, we did take a look at the Canadian Winds Aloft forecast, and the winds were actually predicted to be a slight tailwind. And so we take off, optimistic about the Canadian weather products. And we're hopeful that this stop will put us within 6 hours of our final destination, Palmer, Alaska.
The only thing that would make this better is if I wasn't looking directly into the sun. It's really pretty out here though. I feel like if we could just get a little higher, there's wind up there that could push us, but I'm pretty sure we're just gonna have to go to Watson Lake. We could get on the other side of these mountains and get some crazy winds though, you just never know.
Yeah, I kind of headed this toward Watson Lakes, what I was doing there,
okay.
if that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, there's no sense in, yeah, you can go ahead and draw it on there if you want. Yeah, so the original plan was to head to Whitehorse. This was going to be our last leg for the day, but for some reason we've got a strong headwind when we were actually supposed to have a tailwind. So we're going to have to stop at Watson Lake, which is, what, 2 hours away? Hour and a half away?
Yeah.
Somewhere about an hour and a half away. We'll make a pit stop there, get a little fuel, and get going again. And we'll lose a little bit of time, but this is a safe thing to do. We're just not going to have quite enough fuel. I think we probably would get in on fumes, but it's definitely not worth the risk. Especially out here where there's absolutely nothing out here but mountains and terrain and big, giant, big feet that probably eat you in your sleep. With the winds today, you know, coming out of the west like they are, we're on the leeward side of these mountains, and I know we're quite a ways away from those, but they're stronger than we anticipated. They're in a different direction than we anticipated, so we could get into a little bit of mountain wave turbulence. I think the winds are light enough we shouldn't have to worry about that, but it's best to play it safe than sorry, so we're a little higher than what we would normally be. Alright, so there is some terrain to the west of Watson Lake, and east for that matter, but we'll stay clear of it if we stay above 3,500, until we get, 5 or 6 miles from the airfield. You can see the terrain from here, so I'll give them a call, but the terrain on the departure, it's quite a ways away. It's like 175 miles. We've got some good tools here to get us out of that. We got ForeFlight, and we've got some good information in this thing. Alright, we're in the Class Echo. I'll give them a call here. Watson Lake Radio, Skyhawk 3148 X-Ray.
3148 X-Ray, Watson Lake program.
3148 X-Ray, we are 25 nautical miles to the east, 4,500 inbound, about 15 minutes. Looking for winds if you guys have them.
3148 X-Ray, roger, wind 270 at 11, number 3019, over for the traffic.
3019, thanks. 310 at 11. Gonna have a little bit of a crosswind right to left. Not too bad though. Well, it looks like they have quite a bit better lights than some of the other airfields out here we've seen. I see sequencing flashers, so that's what it looks like anyways.
Let's see, I know our seatbelts are on, fuel's on both, I do know that.
You can go ahead and turn on the landing lights too if you want. Maybe we can see this hill. No, not at all.
Well, it's got pappies anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Level off for me just for a minute. There's some terrain right here. You're at 500 feet AGL. Yeah, keep leveling off. You're still descending. Climb up a little bit. Climb up a little bit.
Not that close to it.
Well, this thing thinks we're 300 feet from it.
Oh,
this is, I forget, this is an 8-mile corridor too. I forget mine's an 8-mile corridor, sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
I was just getting concerned because this thing's like, you're way too low. Watson Lake Radio, Skyhawk 314 X-ray, 5-mile final, 27, Watson Lake. Oh yeah, that looks much better.
X-ray, roger, wind 2809.
Alright, decent winds now. This is kind of a neat little runway, isn't it?
It is.
Good thing we got our night currencies.
Right. Should be over all water now, aren't we?
Yeah, you are. You're good now to do whatever. I just don't like seeing nothing and this thing's red. Those pappies are way too bright.
Yeah, they are. I'm sure I was a little high there, but
I feel like they're bringing us in really shallow, but what do I know? I'll take it.
X-ray, check you down at 0204.
304 X-ray, thanks.
We quickly fuel the plane so we can get back in the air as soon as possible. The weather and winds are looking great, so we take off and are optimistic that we're going to make it over to Whitehorse in about 2 hours. But we're about to experience a dangerous situation that I've never encountered.
So we take off on runway 27 and we start climbing out to the west. The original plan was to climb out to 8,500. And the airplane was climbing out over the terrain just fine, but what we started to notice when we got up to our cruising altitude of 8,500 is that there wasn't any cultural lighting in that area, and there was actually some clouds way high, so the moonlight was being blocked as well. So we didn't have any kind of discernible horizon at all.
You know, we were kind of tag teaming all the way up here, so it was his turn to fly when we left Watson Lake, and so I was watching out, and all we had at one point was just a little bit of the moon that, you was a little bit of light, but no ground lights at all.
So right away, we were flying on instruments, which isn't usually a big deal because I'm actually instrument rated and I've got quite a few hours in instrument conditions. But both of us had gotten up really early and we'd been flying for about 7 hours, so we were both really tired. With a cruise altitude of 8,500 feet, this gave us a terrain clearance height of 1,500 over the highest part of the mountains. But because we couldn't see the ground or any lights on the ground, we decided to climb up to 10,500 for a little bit of an extra safety buffer. And this is where the problem really started to happen. We started to get into some light turbulence. Now, both of us had flown in turbulence before, so this really wasn't a big deal. But once again, we were both super tired, and the combination of these two things is just a recipe for getting spatially disoriented.
I was still watching outside, and when he was at the point he felt like he was having issues, I looked at the gauges and I told him, we really hadn't done anything. We hadn't lost any altitude to speak of, but that turbulence really shook us up.
As soon as we got over the highest part of the terrain, I was looking at my instruments and I noticed that at one point we had a nose-high attitude, but the aircraft was actually descending, and this confused my brain completely. I told Mike that I was spatially disoriented, and for a split second I thought we were just going to spiral down to the ground. For about 30 seconds, I was more scared in an airplane than I'd ever been in my entire career. I don't remember what I said at that point, but I do remember praying to God that He would get us out of that situation. And immediately from there, I started focusing on my instruments and reminding myself to make little changes.
So at that point, when I said, well, why don't we just turn back, and I think we're about 50 miles from Watson Lake.
At that point, I said, yes, that sounds like a great idea. And so he put it in the GPS, and we turned around and headed right back.
Oh man, I was a little nervous, not being able to see anything ground-wise, lights at all, and it was pitch black, and, being that high up, and I looked, and our outside temperature was 0 degrees. Our engine wasn't producing very much heat at all, and it was cold. But yeah, I was concerned, and when that turbulence hit, that shook me up.
Within a few minutes after we turned around, you could see the light over at Watson Lake, and my senses came back to me completely, and we both knew we were going to make it. So at that point, we were glad we turned around.
I was happy until we got there, and it was cold.
Mike and I land safely at Watson Lake. And we're so grateful to make it in one piece that I don't think either one of us cared that we're going to have to sleep on the floor of the FBO tonight. But sleep can be hard to come by when something spooky makes its home in the old military base. Find out what that is and how we work our way around the weather as we continue our journey up to Palmer, Alaska.